Robots Radio. Games, lore, stories, community. Just press play. This show is brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
Robots Radio presents The Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
Welcome to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, a place where the Elder Scrolls community can come together to discuss the boundaries of our knowledge about the universe of the Elder Scrolls. Welcome back, adventurers! It is time again for the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. I am your host, Tom, or Robots, and I'm here, as usual, with my good buddy, the Lotus of Doom. Lotus, how you doing? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. This is today was my last day of work until next week, as I'm going on vacation to the beach. So
nice.
Yep. So nice. I get to do this and then be a lazy slob for like 4 days in a row.
That's great. Everybody needs a good lazy slob,
Yes.
Lazy slobcation.
It's supposed to still be raining an awful lot, but whatever.
The beach is beautiful in the rain. It can be,
what?
I'm
nice. I'm just happy to not be working.
Yeah, right.
That's enough. I'm not picky.
That's good. Well, welcome back, everybody. We're talking about Lotus's favorite topic. We mentioned it a little bit last week. We are deeply into our weird and wacky lore and theories.
This is as weird as it gets, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so we kind of dove in the deep end. This is only the second of these that we're going to do. There's a few more that we could knock out. Some of the theories and things are a little bit shorter. This one's one of the longer ones. And what we're talking about today is Coda. We've talked about Coda a little bit, and we're going to go into this in detail. And I think we might cover this in a little bit different way than we normally do, because, friends, I want the weird to soak into your soul. I want to immerse you. I want to baptize you in the fluids of the Kirkbridean fluids. There you go. That's not a noun I want anywhere near anything from Kirkbride. We're just gonna douse so many
you. Innuendos. I don't feel like fluids is good here.
We're gonna douse you and just make it saturate your every part of your being. Wow. And So this is the second in our weird and wacky series. If you didn't listen to the last one, go back and listen to that one, because that one's a good one as well. This is part of why I love the Elder Scrolls stuff, is because of the weird and wacky stuff. And
it's only grounded sometimes.
Right. And the potential for the weird and wacky. And, everybody's got like their weird, like, Thanos did this thing in Iron Man 2 and nobody knew it, like weird fan theory stuff. This is like even deeper than that kind of thing. So anyway, that's what we got going on. Also, I don't know that I can say anything other than, hey, did you hear about QuakeCon? That's coming.
Yeah, that's probably as much as we should say about that.
That's it. QuakeCon, also big deal. You guys are going to love it. You should tune into that in a few weeks, and it's going to be awesome. There's going to be all sorts of cool stuff.
I personally that was announced today. QuakeCon.
Yes, so. QuakeCon.
I wish QuakeCon actually had a little more Quake. I really want a new Quake game. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I know. I love Quake.
I like the one that's out, but I actually really like Quake.
I love the like Quake 1 style Quake.
Yeah, stuff. The old school arena shooter. That had such a weird. All right, this isn't a Quake cast.
Yeah, this isn't a Quake cast.
The setting's real cool.
Settings real cool. All right, so just we'll give you a little nudge. Better go check it out. It's gonna be awesome. All right, so Coda, and it's spelled C0DA, Coda. And so what is Coda? So let's just get into this from the beginning. Coda is a script for a 64-page digital graphic novel authorized by the ex-developer Michael Kirkbride, who we talked about last week when we talked about Pelennor Whitestrake. Pelennor was one of his creations. And I did get on our YouTube video, somebody corrected me and said that Pelennor actually shows up in Redguard, although I didn't realize that. So Maybe I was wrong about.
Remember that?
Yeah, I didn't find info about that
a while
either.
ago. I need to replay that on stream, but I played that years ago. Interesting. I don't remember Pelinel being in.
Yeah,
I'll have to look more into that. I'm glad that was mentioned then, because I don't recall that.
Yeah, so I don't know much about that either. I haven't been able to find more info about that yet, but mostly because I didn't think to look up more stuff about it until right now that I'm thinking about it. So I'll have to dig into that some more. But today we're talking about Coda. So this is a graphic novel by, or at least a script, and it reads like a script. So we're not going to read it out, because reading a script on a podcast is weird. It doesn't really work very well, but we are going to go over a summary of this. And like I said, I want to immerse you guys in the weird that is Coda, but a little bit more about it before we get into it. So Coda's background is introduced in the text, a love letter from the 5th era, the true purpose of Tamriel, which brings some insight into a few aspects of Coda's lore, most importantly, the concept of the Amaranth. The Amaranth is a state that lies beyond all existence and the means to create a brand new universe. It was designed to present the natural endpoint of the Elder Scrolls mythology. Coda's timeline officially begins with the current unreleased text known as Dies Irae, so Irae, said to feature a catastrophe resulting in the death of the Three Good Daedra. A lot of this stuff is reference to Morrowind and Dunmerry kinds of lore and culture. It continues.
This is very much Morrowind tie-in. Like, it's almost the way I've always looked at Coda, just before we delve into it too much, is kind of like if you drop Oblivion and Skyrim and ESO and pretty much anything that comes after Morrowind, and you let Michael Kirkbride do Elder Scrolls 4, this is more of the direction of that. Right. So that's kind of just has always had the flow to it. And obviously, as we just mentioned with the 5th era, it jumps a bit ahead, more so than the games already jump ahead.
Yes. Yeah. It takes place in the end of the 5th era, which would tie it into, like, for example, Skyrim is the beginning of the 5th era. So this would be like way later in the 5th era, because technology and things are very different in this. It goes on, it says, and this all comes from the fandom.com wiki. I usually don't use the fandom.com one, but it has a good summary, and so that's why I'm using it this week. It continues with the short text, The Prophet of Landfall, which depicts the arrival of the Numidium and the very beginning of Landfall. Numidium, if you guys recall what that is, that was the big robot thing that was created. Also,
just because I know that it would cause me to scream at my speakers as well. Skyrim was technically the 4th era. I just wanted to double.
You're right. Thank you.
Theoretically, yes. Had Alduin succeeded, we might have gone into the 5th era.
Right. No, you're right. I'm sorry. I
just
pulled the wrong number out of my head.
Things where I was like, ooh, that would like poke at me, because it was like, oh God, and I know it's just, but no, you meant. So.
Yes. Thank you. I'm sorry. It was just pulling wrong numbers out of my brain. Yeah. It is so it's heavily implied that the Numidium's return was caused by its siege of Alinor, which lasted from the Merithic era unto long into the 5th, according to Coda. The Prophet of Landfall is followed by another unreleased text referred to as Stringendo, which progresses into the partially released text Landfall Day 1. This text depicts the events leading up to the refugees escaping Nirn on a ship known as the Wonderweir. Not Wonderwall, Wonderweir, including the erasure of the Altmer race and the Nerevarines' confrontation with the Numidium, utilizing Akulakon. Maybe that's how you pronounce it? Akulakon.
Ooh, a Kulakon sounds kind of neat.
Kulakon. I like that. The subsequent and final text is Coda itself, bringing a hypothetical end and new beginning to the Elder Scrolls lore. So this is, again, this is deep stuff. It's fairly wacky and weird, and we're gonna get into it. One other thing I wanted to note before we read it is, according to the fandom site, the main purpose of Coda was to encourage the idea of the Elder Scrolls lore as a living, open source world that anyone can freely contribute to and reinterpret in their own personal manners. For this reason, Coda was released alongside the website Tomorrowwind Today, a site for other people to feature their own stories. The text itself cannot really be interpreted as canon. More so, it attempts to persuade the reader to deconstruct the idea of canon entirely. The story was also designed to address several of the mysterious concepts introduced in some of Kirkbride's earlier works, as well as the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. So I think this is where a lot of the confusion comes in, because we get like, okay, this is to inspire you guys to use the foundation of the lore however you want, to write your own stories and create your own worlds and expansions on the lore, right? Like, create fan fiction is basically what this is saying. But then at the same time, it's saying it's not lore, it's not actual official canon, but at the same time, it works out some more of the concepts that were in Morrowind in ways that may have been originally intended. Question mark.
It's also so, as much as I've made it known that like this is not super my thing, but it's not like I want to convince anybody else that this is bad. It's just not something I personally like an awful lot. Although at the same time, it's not without some kind of neat things to it. One of which is this to me has always kind of been interesting just because with Elder Scrolls Online and with talks, publicly with the lore master, where they're like, the lore is yours and it's all about these interpretations. It's almost like this is an even more extreme version of that. Like they actually reined it in on exact. And that's one of the things that a lot of people are, oh, well, there's canon. And then there's like, it's like actually nowadays it's actually more organized than even it was before because of stuff like this, where it was so much more open or intended to be open from Kirkbride's thing, which that is cool. That's one aspect of the series that I like. It's everybody's interpretation. There's no hard, this happened. Well, I mean, things do happen, but it's always in real life, when something happens, oftentimes the recounting of said stories are those that carried it on, which tend to be the victors, and you get their spin on it. Right. That's kind of how all of Elder Scrolls is told, except it's not always from the victor's perspective sometimes, based on who you work with. So it's just a feature of the game I really like. And this is almost like an even more involved version of that idea. Right.
We never do get to objective truth. And just like in reality, we never get to objective truth. Most people operate like they have objective truth, but the truth is, ironically, the truth seems to be that we don't get to objective truth, even though that sounds like an objective truth statement.
And actually, before we move on, so TES Benefactor from the Imperial Library is actually with us in chat. And one thing that I did not know is when when it first came out, Michael Kirkbride apparently tried to abolish the idea of canon from the series, which totally makes sense. Yeah, like that is totally in line with this. That tracks perfectly. So that's an interesting little tidbit that I did not know about.
Yeah. Yeah. So here, let's get into it. And I don't know if I will read this. The summary is fairly long. I don't know if I'll read the entire summary all at once without stopping, but I want to
the summary is big.
I want to get through a significant portion of it. Let's just say that. And then we may dissect some of it and then take a mid break and then finish it. So I think maybe we'll go about the first half or so. So sure. here's and this is where I want you to wallow around in it. So put on your swim trunks and dive on in with me. Here we go. Sometime well into the 5th era, a catastrophic event known as landfall has forced the surviving inhabitants of Nirn to take refuge under the surface of the moon Masser. Those refugees who escaped from Morrowind have reformed a sprawling new community known as Ald Sotha in the Velothid, also known as Morrowind 2. Built from the burrows of titanic worms. The winds on the moon's surface make it too hazardous to traverse. When the winds die down during periods referred to as landfall season, all inhabitants of Velothid are permitted to make pilgrimage to the moon's surface. However, the dangers of the journey deter most people from taking it, and because of this, many have forgotten where they originally came from. The narrative opens on Jubal Lun Sol, a Dunmer noble of the old salt merchant house Sol, a bloodline said to be registered by Coda. He is overlooking from the balcony of his undermanor, reminiscing about his first pilgrimage and consultation with memory, capital memory, and the capital Wheels of Lull, Lull, not LOL. The setting flashes back to the year 5E 892 during the 88th landfall season. Jubal Lun Sol travels with his wealthy friend Hlalu Hir, H-I-R, through a worm tunnel on what is to be his first pilgrimage to the moon's surface. Jubal appears sheepish and slightly anxious, while Here, we'll just call him Here, who has clearly made the pilgrimage before, is much more optimistic. Upon exiting the tunnel, they look upon the remains of Nirn, now the Wheels of Lull, an interlocking skeleton of fiery debris, gears, and other mechanical apparatus, as well as what appear to be incomprehensible mathematical equations. We may just want to stop here because there's definitely some things to dissect in this as we go. I was thinking we would just keep going, but I think we need to. Okay, so one, the way that the words work when Kirkbride writes things, this idea of like undermanner, like he's inventing a lot of words and combinations of words to describe things. What I would assume he thinks as to consolidate descriptions without having to describe them in more detail, but really that just makes you go, what is that? Right? This happens a lot.
That's done a lot in the 36 Lessons of Vivek as well, though. Like that's kind of like a style that Kirkbride has. And one of the things that I always kind of say is flowery with his writing, but it's one of the things where some people really, I think, like that style of writing, but it's almost like you need to have your own separate encyclopedia on his terms because they're never actually explained most of the time.
Right.
So, there's a lot of references to races and planes of existence in the 36 Lessons, for example, that literally aren't in the rest of the series. So like, why would you have a grounding point? And it's like, well, maybe he didn't get to them, or maybe they just didn't explain them or come up with them yet. Like it was just, I always think of them as kind of information to one day be, and these are just perpetually unfinished works. But I don't know if that's really what they are. It's just how they've always struck me personally.
Sometimes I feel like he just thinks certain things sound cool and doesn't have a hard concept of it. And so he just inserts it.
Will agree with that as well.
I could be wrong, but
no, that's something that I tend to kind of agree with. And for better or worse, like I said, I think some people really like that style of writing, even if it's not for me personally, which it isn't.
Right.
But
so this last section, they look upon the remains of Nirn, now called the Wheels of Lull, interlocking skeleton of fiery debris, gears, and other mechanical apparatus. So who knows, was Nirn mechanical to begin with, or was the civilization down there just developed enough that they had lots of mechanical things? And then what appear to be incomprehensible mathematical equations. How do you see that, right? Like, what does that even mean? Are pieces of paper flying around with math on them? Like that doesn't make any sense, right?
And I guess from the way that I was saying that, like, he speaks very flowery, or very poetic, is many people are essentially like when you're watching Twitch, like we're live right now, or you watch this on YouTube, or you listen. Theoretically, those are, if you want to be fancy about it, you could say you're staring at mathematical equations.
Sure.
That's not really what the best explanation would be, but you could put it like that. So I almost wonder if, without jumping ahead into the TV section, I'm almost wondering if that's part of what it is. Like maybe he's referring to some type of screen or something like that, or, is something like a car, a Dwemer sphere. Technically, that would be based on mathematical equations. Maybe he's poeticizing a physical construct or something like that.
Right. A lot of this can be chalked up to potentially poetry, right?
Yeah.
So it's like poetry, like stuck within prose.
Yeah, there you go.
So it goes on and says, back to the present day, here visits Jubal in his undermanor, and Jubal appears hesitant to share the results of his marriage proposal to the High Alma. Almalexia? High Alma?
Could be.
There's commonality in those words. Here, a busy man, and in a hurry, demands he spit out the news. To Hlalu hears astonishment. Jubal excitedly states that the High Alma had agreed to allow him to marry her daughter. Here, both cheerful and confused, wonders how Jubal managed to convince the High Alma to agree to a marriage so far outside of her caste. Confirming Here's suspicions, Jubal states that there is a catch, that he must hunt a specific thing to prove his worth. Given it is sacrifice season, capitalized, Here believes the High Alma has sent him on a suicidal pursuit to kill a worm. Jubal denies this and states his actual target was picked by memory, capital memory, that he must hunt and kill the Numidium, a notion Here finds amusingly ludicrous. Jubal Loonsol and Hlalu Here travel together to a corner club owned by Here. Sitting in a booth, Jubal says he needs a cat, a request that Here is reluctant to fill but eventually gives into. A skinny Khajiit comes to their table and hands over a bag of skooma on the house, which Jubal smokes from a pipe. Jubal then perceives himself back in the Veluthid worm tunnels. Though different from before, he is greeted by the ghostly Wheels of Lol with, quote, women's eyes appearing within its cogs. Again, more poetry just kind of stuck into the prose, right? Jubal and Here eventually find themselves walking through a multi-leveled marketplace at Ald Sotha, privately overseen by Here's family for reasons concerning Jubal's marriage. The friends are interrupted by two mysterious ghost-like apparitions in the form of fingers, referred to as the Digitals. The Digitals point at Jubal accusingly, seemingly frightening the market's crowd into hiding. Something glows to the left of Jubal, but he pays no mind, instead telling the Digitals to quiet down, as their loud noises are distressing the pedestrians. While Here attempts to turn Jubal's attention to the growing light to his side, in which the people are truly hiding from, the Digitals accuse Jubal of trying to be a condescending groom. Jubal asserts he is merely shopping for a weapon, to which the glowing light reveals itself to be Vivek, who states that he may be able to help him. Okay, time to pause again. So we have these two walking through they're getting visions of things, right? They decide to go shopping for a weapon. Ghostly fingers appear. Everybody runs and hides. And then they realize that they're actually hiding from this other ghostly thing that appears, which is Vivek himself, who is supposedly dead and has been since the events of Morrowind.
Right.
So are they hiding because he's a ghost? Like, I mean, to the people who worshipped him, he wasn't scary. They loved Vivek, right? Like,
sure. And can you kill something like Vivek? I mean, it was left open-ended.
Right, it was left open-ended.
So it's like, you know, I mean, the wonders of Morrowind are you can pretty much do anything you want. Yeah, literally, where just you can corrupt the game by just going crazy and murdering people that are quest givers and stuff like that. So it's like, if the intent is to keep canon so open, you know, maybe this is what he had intended for Vivek to do. It's like, oh, well, was he dead or did he float off? Can you kill a god? Can you not kill a god? It's all very, very ambiguous. So it might literally be a spirit of Vivek, or it could be Vivek. Like, again, it's more up to you to choose kind of thing.
Yeah. So, all right. So Vivek shows up. The story flashes back to old Resdane, designated Morrowind, and this is in parentheses 0, during eras now erased. So Kelpas, maybe?
Could be.
Yeah, Jubal begins to monologue over the fabled life of Vivek. He states that a youthful Vivek, along his friends Nerevar, Sothasil, and Amalexia, discovered a hidden cave with a special stone that gave them powers that they used to chase away demons. What does that sound like? The heart of Lorcan, right?
Yep. Yeah. Definitely just have that directly be that if you would like.
Right. Switching now to a different story of Vivek's legendary origins, designated Morrowind 1, Vivek is now a teenager leading a gang of gutter snipes in Mournhold. He is visited by a masked soldier of the extinct house Indoril, Nerevar, who sees something special within Vivek. Vivek eventually becomes a general of House Indoril and drives out a horde of demonic ash monsters, where it is said that he fought so well he became a god. The next fable, one known well by the people of Velothid, is set in a land known as Tomorrowwind, also dated to an erased era. The people of the comic book styled Neo-Victorian Tomorrowwind are being terrorized by strange figures with television sets for heads, transforming their victims to match their odd appearance. Alandro Sol, depicted as a camera-wielding journalist, runs from these monsters and calls for Vivek on his wristwatch. Vivek arrives and picks up Alandro with Muatra. They meet up with the members of the pseudo-sixth house, Almalexia, Sothasil, Molag Bal, and Dagoth all seemingly presented in a satirical grasp on real-life superhero comics. Alandro Sol recommends that they get Nerevar for help, to which Vivek responds saying, "Ha, which one?" The group descends into an interdimensional tunnel made of liquid video in order to find the intellective, a bionic brain-headed despot from the future, revealed to be Yagram Bagarn. The intellective is accompanied by Sayese scientists who are upgrading their master. Alandro Sol, shocked by the current situation, wonders whether the intellective is making another Numidium, to which Vivek replies that he's buying one instead. What? This is probably the most packed paragraph so far. Okay.
That was a lot of words.
Oh my God.
That's how I'm going to describe it.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna have to break this down a little bit. I so wanted to just like immerse everybody in all of this and just let them go, what? But I think there's enough what going on in each of these paragraphs.
Each paragraph seems like a pretty solid time to chime in with a what.
So, okay. First of all, this is like a who's who, like everyone's dropping names here. Like, you know, like the Tribunal plus Molag Bal plus Dogather, some of these, you know, like Witch Nerevar, multi-dimensions are being referenced. Somehow Vivek understands multi-dimensions and is present in each of them. And this current Vivek also remembers those things or something. There's a lot going on here. Also, on top of that, in Tomorrowwind, they're all being represented like superheroes, which that would be cool. Can we get like a superhero Morrowind comic, Tomorrowwind? That would be great. So,
where do you even begin to unpack this? One of the things that we're actually discussing in chat while we're going through this, it is interesting how much this has jumped into the future, to the point where it matches a lot of, you've got some weird modern day. This is basically jumped from a medieval fantasy to a cyberpunk style like existence, which is quite a genre shift for the same game series. Like that's not something you really see. And I always say that might, for me personally, be one of the things I have an issue with, is the jump is so extreme to me. I find that it loses really like any connection to the series as a whole. It starts getting so out there for me. I have trouble connecting it even to what this has to do with the original source material whatsoever. But on the flip side of things, I'm pretty sure we've joked about it on this show. It's hard when you just have so many hundreds of episodes of podcasts recorded where you discuss something. But one thing that it's always an interesting plot device for fantasy or writing in general when you don't expand your own technology. And Elder Scrolls, thousands of years go by, and there's like no technological advancements for the most part.
Right.
So it would actually make kind of more sense that you would get to a point like this. The situation is there was no build up to it. It's Morrowind ends, and Kirkbride's next interpretation is so far flung in the future. You have a lot of these mysteries that were left, in terms of Vivek. What happened to Vivek? Well, the next, from Kirkbride's perspective, time we see Vivek, he's in this future city with people in cults that have robotic TV heads. It's like, it's quite the jump. It's quite the jump. And it's a weird twist on the series, which I could see people liking the change because it's very drastic. It's very weird. But at the same time, for me, I'm just like, okay, well, we really, so we're just living on the moon with space people, literally at this point is where we've devolved to pretty much.
Yeah. I think one of the ways to consider this is if there are multiple worlds, multiple dimensions, multiple Kelpas, which seems to be a very Kirkbridean concept, that this is being written from a different Kelpa than, say, the one that all of the rest of the games in the series are in. Does that make sense? I think what he's doing here. I totally agree with that. Yeah, I think what he's doing here is he's going, okay, so if we have this multiverse, for lack of a better term, similar to something you would see in the MCU if you've been watching the Loki stuff, or a bunch of other sci-fi and fantasy go into this concept of multiverse. But if the Elder Scrolls exists within some sort of multiverse, cyclical system, and some of the characters in the Elder Scrolls are powerful enough to then somehow exist outside of that, then they would have knowledge of the entire multiverse. And this story takes place in a version of Tamriel that doesn't happen in the games. And one of the things that plays into this is this idea that, like, just because it's a new Kelpa doesn't mean everything is new and different. Just because it's a different concept of a universe, or it's one of the other strands of the multiverse, doesn't mean that there isn't also a Vivek and an Almalexia and a Molag Bal, or a stand-in for those roles that share similarities. And that may have something to do with the way that this story is playing out. It's a different place. It's just using a lot of the same names because it's a weird mirror universe of the one that we're aware of. Right. But it has gone down a very different path.
Yes. And I don't know, for better or worse, like not that this is realistic, but it honestly, to me, even though it's not my thing, is more realistic than the stagnation that actually happens in the series.
Yeah, that's good.
Like that's one thing about it that is always one of those. I'm like, it's weird that in many ways, as weird as this is, it's more of a realistic parallel than never really progressing.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, if you look at human history, we spent, Homo sapiens have been around some estimates between 150, 250, 300,000 years. Mm-hmm. And it was only until about, 40,000 years ago that we even had agriculture at all. And then you get to the end of the Bronze Age was around 2000 BCE. And then we have basically like the Iron Age and the forging of steel. And that went until, I don't know, another few thousand years. It wasn't until maybe 500-600 years ago that we have the origins of science at all. Mm-hmm. Right. And then like the printing press and all of that stuff.
And then everything took off.
Yeah. And that 99% of the knowledge that we have now about the universe, life, and everything, the technology that we have has come about in the last 150 years. Like it's right. Like the slope of advancement is, exponential. So
yes.
So yeah, this could be something that at the end of the fifth era could very well be a real thing. But you're right. Like a world that just kind of exists out there for thousands and thousands of years and doesn't advance at all is a little bit weird. But then again, maybe with magic, you don't need to advance.
That's always something I've heard from like a how do you explain this trope perspective? And they're like, well, you've got magic. And it's like, I totally get that too. Mm-hmm. And I guess it would be, and not that I disagree, but it would also be more believable if everybody had like telepathy, or there's reference to, there are some weird bits in the series. In one of the public dungeons in Elder Scrolls Online, you find out that the Dwemer weren't just telepathic necessarily. They had this weird little helmet apparatus that allowed them to use like tonal frequencies to contact each other.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so cell phones, like cell phone hats.
They had cell phone hats,
like,
yeah.
So it's like, I guess what it is when this much technology is thrust to the forefront, it's a little more jarring than kind of subtly having it floating around in the series, or total stagnation, which fits with the theme maybe more, but is less quote unquote realistic or probable. I guess probable is a little better than realistic, because none of this is supposed to be realistic. That's not really the point.
Sure. All right. Well, let's get back to the summary here, because we're already like half an hour plus in, and we got to get through all of this. So so we'll try to keep it going. Jubal is shown sitting in his study. He breaks away from the Tomorrowwind story, stating that after the return of Numidium, time stopped making sense, and the inhabitants of Tomorrowwind were forced to live inside the moon in an event known as Landfall. However, Jubal believes he has found a way to escape from Landfall. He also believes his ancestor, Alondro Sol, knew how to escape too. The setting returns to Tomorrowwind in a reminiscent documentation of the whole ordeal. Alondro Sol narrates his memories of Vivek and the pseudo-sixth house, praising them as super people, capable of doing the impossible to save the world. He concludes by saying that he can't imagine a world where their kind of impossible isn't possible. Back to the Ald Sotham marketplace, Jubal tells Vivek he is not supposed to see him yet. Vivek then teleports himself and Jubal back to the Sol Undermanor, where Jubal states that the people who just witnessed him teleport are going to think he is cheating. Vivek vanishes after Jubal turns his back on him, which makes Jubal believe Vivek has forgotten the things he had once said, a flaw he intends to fix. Following this, Jubal walks over to his balcony and calls upon his servitor to send a micro-wasp missile message to Halalu here immediately. This is like, there's so much in this part that is like super people. It's going back and forth between the setting of Tomorrowwind and then Ald Sotha in the marketplace, and Jubal talking with Vivek, and Vivek forgetting things and then realizing that he shouldn't be teleporting people because he's, quote, cheating what? Cheating
at life,
right?
Cheating at life. I will say, this is totally surface level too, but I can't with Tomorrowwind. I get it, like, because when you think about it, like, New England. Okay, all you did was just add new to England. It's the same thing. So Tomorrowwind isn't even that, but it's just, oh my God, it sounds so cringe. Yeah, no, totally. It sounds like one of those movies that gets like that was clearly a C-. Yeah.
Right.
On the flip side, Landfall, I think, is a really cool name for like a catastrophic event. So that sounds awesome. It's like Redfall before Redfall was a different game entirely, and the community had to understand that they weren't all correct. And it wasn't Elder Scrolls 6.
That's true. Yeah. All right. So here, why don't we take a break, because we're halfway through the episode. We're going to go thank our patrons, and then we'll come back with the second half of the summary, because this isn't the end of how weird it gets.
The skies are marked with numberless sparks, each a fire, and every one a sign.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show, thanking our patrons. And you know what, Lotus? We hit 50. We hit 50. We have 50 patrons. Welcome to our new patrons, and thank you especially to our Tier 5 patrons who get a call out every week. Daniel O and Noodle Al Dente, thank you, friends. And thank you to all the patrons, including our, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 patrons. If you'd like to join us on an episode of the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, which will be in 2 weeks on the 29th, at the end of the month, then if you are a Tier 4 supporter or higher, then you get to join us and we can talk about whatever topics you want. You know what I think would be really fun, Lotus, is to discuss some of our patrons' own headcanon that they've come up with just playing through the games, things that may or may not have a whole lot of, truth or I
mean, in Sea Chaser's game, there are no divines.
There are no divines. Yeah. We already know his headcanon. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. But I think this would be really cool, like a headcanon episode. So if you want to talk about your headcanon and your experiences playing these games, then come on, join the club. Join the club, friends. Maybe we could hit 55 patrons by the end of the month. That would be insane. That would be amazing. And
was Ulfric Stormcloak actually a plant? Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Was he an actual physical plant? Maybe.
Yeah, was he actually Nerdroot?
But yeah, come and join us. And anybody who signs up gets ad-free episodes a day early. You also get the extended versions of many of the episodes, which either have, wacky, silly banter in the beginning or the end, or sometimes some continued discussion about some of the things that came up in the episode with the people in our chat. And that stuff gets kind of, cut off for the recorded versions. But if you're a patron, you get all of that stuff, including much of that for episodes that have already come out, because all those old episodes are there ever since we started the Patreon, which was like episode, 8 or something like that. So you get lots and lots of stuff. So come join us, join the club, and we would love to see you. Thanks again to all of our patrons.
Hey Guardians, we are the Destiny Show Podcast, a weekly podcast about all things Destiny 2. We invite amazing guests from the Destiny community to share their stories and discuss the latest topics from the world of Destiny. Check us out on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, or live on Twitch every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We will see you Starside.
Yes, you're entirely brilliant. Conquering madness and all that. Blah, 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 blah.
All right, so back to the summary. The scene cuts to a corner club in Ald Satha where Jubal is having his bachelor party. Remember, he's getting married. The regular patrons have been replaced with strange guests, including many gods and demigods. Must be a popular guy.
Yep.
Jubal wears
or a free buffet.
Free buffet. They'll show up. That's how you get them. That's how the summoning always works. Summoning works 100% when you offer a free buffet. Yep. Jubal wears bandages over the stumps where his hands used to be. This is the first reference to anything having to do with him having lost his hands.
Yeah, it sure is.
As he does not recognize many of the guests, Jubal grows nervous, but Halalu here assures him that he'll be fine. This is okay, so quick side note. I get migraines and things. You guys know this. Sometimes we've had to miss episodes or whatever, or Lotus fills in for me on an episode I can't make. So I take these this medication that messes with my brain. And so every night I have the weirdest dreams because of this medication. And it's kind of wearing on me now because it's been a year of this stuff. And I have a certain hesitance to go back to sleep, not because they're nightmares, but because it's just super weird and everything feels really real. This feels like
dream in Coda.
This feels like a nightmare dream from my brain. That's what this feels like. And it goes on. It says, Jubal goes to speak with some of his divine guests, including Morehouse, who we've mentioned before, right? He was the friend of Pelinal.
Yeah, Morehouse is back, just hanging out.
Yeah, he's just hanging out. A hist tree somehow shows up at the party, right? I guess it just grew there. And
maybe it's the rogue one from Skyrim.
And Almalexia, while drunk, he gets into a particularly heated conversation with Akatosh. Can you imagine having a conversation with the dragon time god? Whom he ridicules for failing to keep his control over time. Well, I guess that's a pretty good complaint. As the argument continues, Jubal eventually tells Akatosh to go away as he is drinking with the groom of his brother's dead body.
It's not even the weirdest thing they've said so far. So this one doesn't even catch me off. It's all right.
No, yes.
It's just Weekend at Bernie's here.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to get that reference.
So, somebody's like walking Lorcan around. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah, why not?
As Akatosh vanishes, Talos approaches Jubal, congratulating him. But Jubal tells him to go away too, calling him a virus. As Talos angrily backs away, Kine confronts Jubal and insists that he apologize to Talos immediately. Making amends, Jubal sits with Talos, where they both continue to get even more intoxicated. So he's drinking with Talos, and Talos is getting drunk too. Jubal and Talos then decide to leave the party, holding each other up for support, like two buddies, like leaving a bar. Contemplating the argument they just had, Talos demands to know why Jubal called him a virus. Jubal replies saying the reason for this insult was because Talos had fed off the mastery like a virus, something he doesn't take any particular offense to, as the alternative situation would have required one of them to win at the expense of the other. This is like... I feel like this is referencing things that are like on the edge of my brain, and I just don't see clearly.
And this is my problem, is I find Coda is a lot of referencing things that Michael Kirkbride hasn't written yet. And it's discussed as if, well, clearly you know what I'm talking about, right? And it's like, well, no, you haven't written it yet. Why would I know what you're talking about? And it's because, to your point, the way that they're worded and talked to and stuff, I mean, the actual readings of Coda are a little more script-like since this is the condensed thing. But like, it's weird because a lot of these seem like it's referencing things you should know, or it talks to you in a way that, well, if you're up to date on the series, you would know this. Like, you know the lore of this. But it's like that lore doesn't exist. So there's the difference between trying to analyze what it could be and what symbolism it could be, or which is why I'm like, yes, since none of this really exists, it doesn't do anything for me, because it doesn't captivate me, because I feel like I'm just writing all of the stuff you didn't write, which isn't my preferred way of consuming media. I would rather write my own book if I want to do that. And I'm a bad writer, so I don't do that.
And what else is interesting about this is that, like, references to Talos here. Is it Talos as Kierkegaard? That's a philosopher. Kirkbride. Envisioned at the time of writing Morrowind and his head version of Talos? Or is it Talos that we know more about due to Skyrim? Or is it the Talos that we know even more about due to Elder Scrolls Online? And does that stuff even make sense with the whole virus concept? You see what I'm saying? Like, Kierkegaard. Yeah, sorry, Kirkbride. I'm just mixing up words all over the place. This thing's breaking my brain. So I'm sure people have 100 theories about these things, because obviously they do. So let's get on with it.
On that note, just before we do move on, so we've been talking about Vivek. Okay, is Vivek a ghost? What canon ending? And one of the things that I appreciate Fragile Shark confirming for me, all of a sudden I'm like, wait, Amalexi is dead too. She died before Kirkbride even left. Like, and hers isn't ambiguous. She's dead. Like, oh yeah. Spoilers, in the Tribunal expansion, murder orgy. She kills Silphasil, so she dies. Like, she goes nuts. Like that one's not even ambiguous. So she's just hanging out. She's back, I guess. That's fine. Mother Morrowind is apparently also eternal and lives on the moon. So
no, it's clearly a different timeline, because the Numidium continued sieging Alinor forever. Right. Which that's that timeline, and to that point, Dragon Breaks as a concept, which are really neat for the series, but they're also a get out of jail free card that can be used. You can Dragon Break your way into this if you want. Like, and it doesn't even, that's why I don't get too hung up on lore canon, because it's like, well, I mean, everything happened all at the same time. The fact that there is no definitive, just a single timeline. So Right. All right. So it goes on and says Talos and Jubal Loonsoul exit the subterranean tunnels leading to the surface of the moon. There, Jubal points to the remains of Nirn, stating that the arena, remember how Nirn used to be called the arena? Was where they used to live. Jubal goes on to say that from the beginning, the only reason they were put there was to fight, which is a notion he doesn't quite understand. Talos, as he begins to transform into Lorcan, tells Jubal that he is lying and that anyone who has cut off their own hands already understands. Jubal had the arena in reach, but decided to refuse it. He's turning into Lorcan. So is this a hint that Talos and Lorcan were always the same?
Right. Which I guess, to be fair, it had been a while since I had reviewed this, but when this part came up, it was like, maybe that lends the credence to a lot of people's idea that Talos is Lorcan. It's like, it seems like it's actually much more from this than I ever remembered. It's like, oh, okay. So that's where people were grabbing that idea.
Right. Hey, I mean, there are some other similarities. Like you can make that argument. Sure.
Yeah. This is an interesting one that's like, oh, okay. Yep. If you go by Kirkbride, then actually, yeah, it seems like this could definitely be a thing.
Mm-hmm. Knowing time was almost up, Jubal begins to meditate. Sorry. And just as Lorcan decides to leave, Jubal takes back his insult of calling him a virus and instead refers to him as a preacher. I guess concept like preachers preach ideas and ideas spread like viruses. That could be a thing. As he sits meditating, Jubal Lun's soul is finally visited by the massive spiky Numidium. Jubal greets the Numidium. Hello, giant thing. Who only replies with empty speech bubbles. Like this is written like it's a visual novel, right? So
yeah,
they would not be saying anything. Like what would the use of putting an empty speech, like just like ... maybe?
It's like you're typing in an MMO and the little speech bubble comes above somebody's head,
but nothing comes out.
Says ... I assume that's. And given the circumstances, I assume that's literally what's popping out of people's heads during this with actual sounds, because it's like, okay, this is clearly the type of situation we're in. So it's like, yep, people are manifesting little speech bubbles, I assume.
I guess so, right? And it makes sense if this was if that's the concept, is it's a visual novel. So let's review this. Jubal greets the Numidium, who only replies with empty speech bubbles, stating he has to kill it now. Hello, Numidium. I must kill you. As he promised no tricks, the Numidium agrees to shrink to Jubal's size for the time being. Jubal decides to start his confrontation with the contrarian Numidium by reciting scriptures from each of their respective cultures, the Dunmer and the Dwemer. Beginning with the words of his people, Jubal delivers a line from Sermon 11 from Vivek's writings. According to the codes of Mephala, there is no difference between the theorist and the terrorist. Even the most cherished desire disappears in their hands. This is why Mephala has black hands. Bring both of yours to every argument. The one-handed king finds no remedy. When you approach God, however, cut both of them off. God has no need of theory, and he is armored head to toe in terror. 36 Lessons of Vivek, Sermon 11. So this goes on to explain why his hands were cut off, because of this right here.
Yep.
Knowing every assertion made makes the Numidium want to destroy more and more, Jubal continues with the words of the Dwemer, in which he simply repeats no over and over again. Jubal states that while the Numidium wants to think of its philosophy as never underestimate the little guy, it is really only coming off as a brat, which gets nobody anywhere. What? Jubal goes on to reveal that the Numidium was itself the disappearance of the dwarves, their attempted escape from existence, which begs the question of why the Numidium keeps trying to come back. Jubal asks the Numidium if it has some sort of unfinished business, to which the Numidium replies saying, maybe.
I love how nonchalant that was. It's just like yeah.
Maybe.
Robotic shrug.
This makes Jubal incredibly frustrated, as that is the magic word, and they both promise to not use any tricks.
Like,
the Numidium reiterates, stating, gray area, gray maybe. Oh, so maybe he's referencing the Grey Navy. Maybe the Numidium is a philosopher here. With these words said, Jubal's assumption of the Numidium was proven correct, and he yells at it that the whole time all it wanted was to win, which the Numidium affirmed with a simple yes. Jubal, who had finally gotten what he wanted from the Numidium, apologizes to it before decapitating it with an empty speech bubble. So this breaks the fifth wall. I don't know how many walls we've broken at this point. Grabs the speech bubble from the animation and chops the Numidium's head off with the empty speech bubble. While Jubal lay exhausted over the Numidium's corpse, the Digitals returning saying that there is no more wheel or lull and that the time for union and Amaranth has come. This is like ushering in the end time, right? The next day, Jubal is ready for his wedding, clad in the brass shell of the defeated Numidium. As he is preparing, however, the room is flooded with Morag Tong assassins, led by Hlaluhir. A micro-wasp missile appears and begins drilling into Jubal's forehead. Jubal tells his old friend to call it off to no avail. Here only replies stating that this is painful for him too. Jubal, growing ghost hands, pulls out the wasp himself and proceeds to kill off the Morag Tong assassins. While fighting, Jubal asks here what hurt him the most, which here discloses was that Jubal never told him what the Wheel of Lul had said. I don't even know where to start with this part.
How about we start with just like, so all I can, again, if this is your type of writing, I don't mean to disparage you, because I do like a lot of Michael Kirkbride's ideas, but the one thing that I just like imagery to these things when listening to this, one of my favorite images of this is just casually a weird thing like, oh, it's just drilling into my forehead. Would you please make this stop? And it's like, nah, I can't help you, man.
Sorry, it hurts me too, friend. Yeah, but I have to do it. Well, fine. I'm going to spawn ghost hands out of my nubs, which I cut off
out of my nubs
intentionally in order not to have hands. But now I do have hands.
But now I do have hands because it's convenient to me to have hands.
Because I need to pull something out of my head, right?
So I do that in this just weird for the sake of weird situation, as far as I'm concerned. But the thing that I just love is the idea of just all of these Morag Tong assassins literally just hanging out, having snacks because, it's a wedding, and just not really doing anything. They're just there for some reason other than people know what Morag Tongs are. And he just goes on a killing spree and just like wipes all of these people out, just obliterating them. And Fragile Shark actually brings up, I appreciate everybody's like input through this up front from the live chat, because there's so many interpretations to this stuff. I love hearing different ones. Yeah. The Morag Tong could possibly be a reference to an aforementioned Black Hands of Mephala, which that's pretty cool, because even though the Morag Tong is like the kind of like other Assassins Guild, you've got the very blatant tie-in to the Dark Brotherhood as well. So it's like, that's an interesting, like interpretation of that as well. But it's just the scene itself to me is so completely ludicrous. And that's just kind of, I don't know, call me too literal, but that's one of the things that I get so hung up on this, where it's just like, everything, you're just describing weird scenes for the sake of being like, I can out-weird myself in the last paragraph. I'll show you. Right. That's where we get each subsequent thing. And it's like, there's snippets of useful story in and amongst all of the, I've always described it as weird for the sake of weird. So it's like that. It's not that they're devoid of usefulness or actual like content. It's just they're done in such a way that it's like it's almost intentionally obtuse or peculiar to live up to its own need to be obtuse and peculiar, even though you're explaining something that maybe wouldn't be that if you didn't go out of your way to make it so strong in that direction.
Right. It's this writing and other stuff like the Lessons of Vivek. They're all almost 100% symbolic. Like it's almost all symbolic language, which makes me wonder why cast it in the form of a story. Like, does that make sense? Like, it's kind of like, I like the reason why you have a story is so the story can be followed, and you have, for example, the arc of, like a champion or a, what's it called? The hero's journey. That's what it's called. So you have like the hero's journey, right? And these things, like this harkens back to some sort of hero's journey kind of story, but it's all done in such symbolic way. It's like, I get that it's like pseudo religious in that sense, but in the pseudo religiousness, it's like another step into the obscure where everything is a reference to something and nobody's actually saying the thing that it actually means. And so you have to dig it up. Like you have to go, okay, like maybe is a reference to the gray maybe. What is the gray maybe? It's this, like, so
it's a breadcrumb trail to another breadcrumb trail. And that's kind of what gets weird about it. But also to both Fragile Shark and Benefactor's point in chat is, in relation to, because Kirkbride's referencing his own 36 lessons, which he wrote for the main series, and they're part of the canon series for what that's worth for everybody. The like joke where I said you kind of need an encyclopedia to reference all the references. It's actually more so when you look at Michael Kirkbride, he's his own encyclopedia to himself, because without you're dissecting Michael Kirkbride and his writings as much as the story that is being portrayed, I find a lot of times. Right. Which gets weird to your point, because then finding the actual kernel of,
if everything is symbolic, then what is literal?
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. Like there's no, when everything becomes symbolism, there's no literal core. It's just, here's like, all symbolism does is it points to a greater or deeper concept or truth, but in this case, concept. So if that's what this is doing, then why not just have a bulleted list of concepts? Right? Does you see what I'm saying? Like if it doesn't actually take you on the journey of a literal thing, then then what is the point of it other than to be obtuse?
Which, again, there's like an air of mystery around that. Like to your point, like when something's obtuse, like we'll go with a more concrete example in this series. I like the level of obtuseness and mystery surrounding the Dwemer. I don't really want concrete answers to what happened there. Like it's got this mystery and no clear answers type of thing to it. And that's part of its appeal. This to me is almost like a far, far more intense version of you're tracing these lines and finding these different things to different ideas that he has and concepts that he's trying to explain. And like, I can totally understand why that's fascinating. And it's too much for me. Like it's too many. We'll interpret this to interpret this, and to interpret this, there's this, and it's so on and so forth. It loses me in its own convolutedness personally. So that's where I think I struggle to really take much from it, other than, oh, this is a cool setting. Oh, this is a neat little tidbit here or something like that. I guess would be the way I would explain it from my side.
Right. Okay, well, let's finish the text and then we'll kind of wrap up the discussion on it. So it says, flashing back to the time Jubal made his first pilgrimage, he is greeted by the Wheels of Lull. Remember, the Wheels of Lull are the remains of Nirn, a spirit known as Memory. So now we know that Memory and the Wheels of Lull are the same thing. Memory thanks Jubal for making the pilgrimage, as few people make the journey with each passing year. Jubal asks her why, and Memory responds saying that she is leaving soon. Memory continues, urging Jubal to not tell anyone she told him this, because otherwise they will all come to her, and she hates goodbyes. In the present, Jubal continues to kill the remaining Morag Tong assassins, finally getting to Halalu Hir, whom he proceeds to choke to death. Jubal, speaking over Hir's dead body, assures that Hir's house is dead and that he will never get to know what Memory said. Regardless, Jubal tells Hir to go in peace, knowing that Memory was right, that goodbyes are the worst. Jubal now enters the temple of Ald Sotha, where the whole Dunmeri race is present for his wedding. Again, like clearly symbolic, right? His wife-to-be, the High Alma's...
Is it symbolic? Are you sure they're just not all in this one room?
Right. His wife-to-be, the High Alma's daughter, is revealed to be Vivek, taken a female form. The priest overseeing the wedding is Lorcan. As Jubal and Vivek recite their vows, Akatosh, occupying in the gaping wound where Lorcan's heart once resided, begins eating his own tail. That's a reference to Yakuden lore.
Yep.
Once Vivek and Jubal kiss, Lorcan's wound is healed and all things are made secure. The story ends with the birth of the first new man, Numan, kind of like new metal, who will become the next Amaranth. And so therefore the cycle continues, like that kind of thing, right? So
okay, so Slipknot. That's what they became.
right. And then they play new metal until the end of time or the beginning of the new time. So obviously, okay. So clearly this is a lot of symbolism, and it's symbolism to show that like all of these things are godlike entities that represent things that form this loop. And the breaking of that loop falls into pieces, and then all the pieces come back together again in the end. It creates a cycle, like all of this stuff, right? And TAS Benefactor, he borrows from the works of Aleister Crowley. He borrows from a lot of old religious text and those kinds of things. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and I get it. Like it's fun to dig into that stuff, but at the end of the day, like, what does it really mean? Does it really what is the real benefit of this other than just like, it's fun to write crazy stuff and then find ways to tie it all together through symbolism? Like, okay, like that's cool. Like, but like, is there more? Is it telling us anything we didn't already know? Or is everything a reference to something, which is a reference to something else, which is a reference to something else? You know, like.
Right. Or to that point, again, maybe that's the master plan behind Michael Kirkbride here, is to the point of like, does it actually tell us anything we didn't already know? Well, maybe the idea is having it just be so obscure that we overanalyze everything and form our own thing, which in turn made us forcibly kind of make our own story. And his was almost like an outline done in such a strange way that it's to prod us into making our own stories, so to speak. If he doesn't want anything to be canon, maybe this was like the master plan to get everybody to kind of work on making their own canon, if that was like his end goal type of thing. And it's like, well, right. I don't want to give you too much concrete because then you'll rely on my story. So I'll come up with a whole bunch of stuff and leave it so open-ended. You'll analyze this to the point of making your story and then look at all these stories that have been created. And it's like, well, were you analyzing what I wrote, or were you filling in the blanks that I left type of deal? Which, again, not sure that that's the point to it, but it's just another possibility.
Mm-hmm. You know what I would think would be, okay. So the other thing that gets me about this writing is, and you see this a lot in religious literature, like the point at which, and here's just an example, the point at which it talks about the fact that he doesn't have hands because they're both cut off. It very soon follows up with why that is a thing, because it has a reference there, and the importance of that thing in dealing with the Numidium and the reference. Like, all of that stuff is stuck into the same section. It's as if the writer only thought to include that in that section of the writing because that's when it was important to share that information. And a good story will, if a story cares about the reader, it will usually take that information and plant it way earlier in the story. Does that make sense? Like when we get a description of Jubal in the beginning, why aren't we given the description that like he looks like this? He is missing 2 of his hands. He's like take all the things that eventually have important meaning and explain them or note them or foreshadow them earlier in the story so that we get those things into our head, so that we realize that those are paths. And when we see those things come back up later, we remember, oh yeah, I did remember that he didn't have hands. This is why. When you take those important details and you only ever mention them in like one little short section, because that's where they're important for symbolic reason, it makes them feel like you just came up with that in that moment and then you paid it off right then. And it was like a last minute thought and you didn't actually include it in other stuff earlier. Like, how many times do you watch a good movie and the things that, like, the conversations or the things that are brought up in the first act come to fruition in the third act, and you go, oh, that's why, that's so-and-so said that thing and then this thing happened here at the end. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. You know, like right. That stuff brings you through the story. Like, there's a reason why that stuff works. And TES Benefactor says Coda's supposed to be a comic, so in a way he missed artwork would help share the story that isn't in the text. That's true. That's very but the same thing happens, and it's not just Coda. The same thing happens in like Vivek's lessons. Yeah, oftentimes lessons. Yeah, oftentimes there are concepts that become important in like lesson 6, and then they only exist in 6 and 7, and they're not brought back up anywhere else, and they weren't hinted at before that, and there is no further. You know, and the idea that like, and then once that concept wasn't useful, all of a sudden he just grows ghost hands and now he has hands again. You know, like that's not satisfying. Right. You know, like
I agree with that. Where it does, it's tropes are tropes. You know, when they're just kind of there until they're not needed, right? Which is it was a weird way of doing things in many cases. But to the comic aspect or the, I mean, you know, a graphic novel kind of way, one very strong point to this series, which I strongly recommend. It is free. You can just Google Coda with a 0 and you'll get there. The artwork to this, even though I don't like Coda, the artwork is really cool, really cool. And I actually think if you like this, it adds so much to it. So like just the text are fine, but like add the artwork to it. And I actually feel that it adds a lot to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Fragile Shark in chat says, or ghost hands are themselves a metaphorical portrayal of his inability to commit to cutting off his own hands. But that doesn't, he already gained the benefit of cutting off his own hands because he was able to destroy a god, meaning the Numidium. And then the hands were like, and we could go into this forever, and I am by no means the end of any concept of how this lore should be interpreted. Oh,
me either. Like, if I wasn't making that clear enough.
Right. This is
and that's
This is a discussion to get a discussion started, right? And there are definitely people out there who have studied this and will say, this is what this sentence means, this is what this means, this is what this means, this is what this means, and they will go through everything, and they have in their heads what everything means based on reading through all these other works and connecting all the dots. Like, I get that. And I'm sure some of them have some really firm reasons for why they believe certain things mean certain things. And so therefore this is what this whole thing means. And that's great. That's awesome. And if you have concepts on that stuff, I would love to hear it, because I think that stuff's interesting. I think what Lotus and I are saying is that, like, all said and done, is it a bunch of noise for no reason? Like, what is ultimately of value in this? I'm
right.
It's just, is it just fun for the sake of fun because it's like a mind puzzle? Okay,
right.
That's fine.
And that's, I think, what it is to get out of it. And to the writings themselves, the point almost is your interpretation of it. Like, that's kind of what little concrete gold there seems to be in Michael Kirkbride's writings,
right?
Is that it's to kind of grab your take on it.
Right.
Mine might be much more surface level because I'm like, this is flowery nonsense to a series that I like. And I think Michael Kirkbride comes up with some, we made reference to this last episode, where I think he comes up with a very creative, very unique, because it takes, we'd mentioned his connections to real world things or other writers or other stories. But I love the way, I mean, some of them I actually did not know that, like, who is the author that, well, whatever. Aleister Crowley, I guess. I did not. I didn't know that was a reference to somebody specifically. Like, I don't know who that is. So in that example, it's like I didn't even catch that. But like, for example, followed up with like Dune or something like that. Yeah, okay. Like he draws from everything. Fiction is usually drawn from other fiction and you make it into your own. I love his creations because Morrowind, as I've long said, is my favorite video game. And that is so Michael Kirkbride in a video game. Like, it really is. And I've always said that I think that Michael Kirkbride is super great when he is run through at least one editor.
Sure.
And then it makes something that I truly love.
Right.
The problem is I don't like unshackled Michael Kirkbride. It gets too weird, too metaphorical, too self-referential, where it's like, I can't keep track of you referencing other things that you made up, that you referred to in another reference of something you made up. It's like that to me is so just stretched out and unclear that my interest wanes. Whereas when it's consolidated down, I think there's like, that's when he's at his best writing, is like, oh, condense what he's saying. And man, you get some cool stuff.
Yeah, ultimately, I think from the perspective, and we've got to wrap up the show because we're running out of time. We got the Dungeons and Dragons lorecast starting in 15 minutes.
Yeah, who would have thought Coda ran long?
Yeah, imagine that. But like, when it really comes down to it, does this have any bearing on actual in-game stuff? Right? Does this have any bearing on what we understand about the lore already? And if the one thing that we can gather from this is Kelpas are real, alternate universes are real, cyclical time is a real thing, that's helpful to know that much. But then again, he did write the whole thing in order to say nothing is canon. So does it actually have any real implication on the game that we love? And the reason that's why we're talking about it, I don't know. If you come at this from a creative writing standpoint and go, is this an interesting way of stringing together a bunch of words that refer to other things in a very complex manner that have some sort of secret meaning? That's cool. Like, yes, maybe. But does it actually affect the game that we're playing and our understanding of that game? That's a very different thing. Yeah.
And without being weird myself, you kind of run into this problem of, if you want to say that what he was writing here is, yes, like that's the goal, is that like nothing should be, nothing should be canon. It should all be open-ended and weird and whatever. Mm-hmm. You get that side effect, which makes it so that, well, I guess it doesn't really matter what happens in the series. And it also by default makes this really not matter. Right. Or you don't think this matters because it's super obscure and bizarre, in which case it doesn't add anything to the series and it doesn't matter. So no matter what, I tend to think this doesn't matter. There you go. But on the flip side, I totally understand the people who really dig this stuff. And it's like, ooh, this is the outside canon material that a lot of people love. Totally understand. It's a little beyond my interest level, but I get it.
Yeah, I get it too. Like, being somebody who has a religion background. Like
right.
The symbolism in religious
quotes,
works,
by the way, I don't mean that I actually get it.
Right. You get their love of it. Right.
Yeah.
And I like that too. Like I enjoy, the love of religious works and their understanding the symbolism. But what's interesting about religious works is that the symbolism was inherent to the culture that wrote it. So if you were in that culture, you would have understood what it meant. It wouldn't have needed to be decrypted. Like the phrase that I like to use in reference to this is if I was to write a short story and I had one of the characters say, "What the heck? I told you 1,000 times." That's not meant to be literal. Right. And we all understand that because we use that phrase in our culture. But if I was to write that in a story and we go 1,000 years into the future, somebody reading that 1,000 years from now may not understand that that's not meant to be literal. And that's honestly the way religious works work, is that the culture that wrote them, if you were in that culture and you read that, you would get the symbolism. You would get that, like, this character is a joke character. This character is symbolic of something else, and that's what we're missing here. Is that nobody lives here, right? Nobody lives in like the only person who lives in the culture of Coda and the stories, the lessons of Vivek is Michael Kirkbride. Like he's the sole inhabitant of this culture.
Right.
And some people try to learn it, but he's by himself.
Yeah, right. You get those different interpretations because it's us looking from the outside in. And to have it just as video games as a whole, localization. I mean, it was much more common back then. A example would be like Final Fantasies. When those were localized, sometimes you lost story parts, or story parts changed because they're like, people aren't going to get this. Yeah, like if we put this to the West. So that is on full display when you have religious texts and stuff like that. It's a lot of it is in short terms, it's localization to your life as opposed to from one language to another. But it's a culture to a culture. So it's interesting.
Yep. Hey, Lotus, we got to wrap up the episode, buddy.
Yes. Are you going to be late for your next show?
Yeah. It'll be fine. Hey, what's fun about the next show is that Stuart, who does the show with me, Dungeons and Dragons Lorecast, is a big fan of Bethesda games, Elder Scrolls and Fallout and all that. They were doing a giveaway. He's in Australia, and it was only available to people in that side of the world. He won the giveaway. He got a Fallout share and a bunch of other stuff. Like he was one of the winners.
I actually reposted that for all of my New Zealand and Australian friends. Yeah, like, man, I wish I could. I want that Stream Deck holder. Yeah, I want that Pip-Boy Stream Deck holder. It's so cool.
Yeah, I did the same. I saw that giveaway, and I told Stuart, I told the guys from Roll the Cast who are also on the Robots Radio Network, and I was like, hey, you guys might be interested in this. Go ahead and enter. Yeah, Stuart won. That's nuts.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. But what do you have going on? What do you want to share before we head out?
Actually, until next show, I have straight up nothing because I won't be here.
You're on vacation.
I'm on vacation, so don't look for my streams. I won't be able to join them on Tales of Tamriel. I will not exist until our next show, most likely.
Nice. Hey, if they need another someone to fill your seat, let them know. I should.
I was going to say you can be new me.
I could be the new you.
Yeah, I like this idea.
Yeah, we both have beards.
It's true,
and we're wearing hats and glasses.
We're wearing hats.
We're like the same person.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Pretty much.
That's awesome, dude. Enjoy your vacation. And
100% I will.
Yeah. And I don't know what we have going on here. Of course, we've got all the shows at robotsradio.net, all the fun stuff going on with, the network and all that stuff. We have the Rocket League, the Rocket Club. Rocket League is the game my son was playing earlier with his friend, the Robots Radio Rocket Club. So if you're interested in doing your own podcast and want some help with that, I'm happy to do that. We've got a bunch of awesome creators that are part of that community, and check out robotsradio.net for that stuff and all the other shows on the network. If you're looking for more shows, we've got all sorts of lore shows and a bunch of other stuff as well about all the video games and stuff you guys love. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Until next time, try not to go crazy decoding Coda. And if you have any thoughts on any of this stuff you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you on the Robots Radio Discord. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time. Stay tuned. If you're interested in Dungeons & Dragons, which you should be, stay tuned for that. That will be coming in just about 10 minutes. All right, guys. See you later.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. If you have something you'd like to contribute to the show, please reach out to us at elderscrollslorecast@gmail.com or on Twitter @ESO Lorecast. I really appreciate you listening, and I'd love to hear from you soon.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.
Are you an avid player of the Elder Scrolls Online and looking to take your game to that next level? Well, the Red Diamond Courier podcast is here to help. I'm Bob Chichinski.
And I'm Dogbark24.
We are two experienced players aiming to help others learn and improve through in-game knowledge and references.
From PvE
to PvP
and everything in between.
There's sure to be something for you in the Red Diamond Courier.
We hope you check us out. Thanks.
Hey, I'm Pylon.
And I'm Doc.
And if you've ever played an Elder Scrolls game, you've probably used UESP.net to help you find information about a quest, dive deeper into lore, or really learn anything about the Elder Scrolls.
But did you know we have a podcast too? Every week we bring you the latest in Elder Scrolls news, dig deeper into topics surrounding the game, and have a ton of fun while doing it.
You can find us on your favorite podcatcher by searching the unofficial Elder Scrolls podcast. Can't wait to see you all there.
Once upon a time, 27 years after the bombs fell, there were two people, a vault dweller and a California girl. They met and sparks flew. That's when things got interesting. Once Upon a Wasteland is their story. Follow Elizabeth Kirby and Odessa Valdez as they pursue their happily ever after in the post-apocalyptic Appalachian wasteland of Fallout 76. Available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and many other podcasting platforms. Once Upon a Wasteland, a Fallout 76 love story, available now.